our city is more sustainable in the long term. So, talking about sustainability, one thing which I would like to ask, normally people take SDG as the final goal. But if you really ask me, the SDGs are not the final ultimate goal that we need to reach or we need to strive or work for, but they are just a bridge towards designing the regenerative culture. So ultimate destination for the mankind today, considering our precarious situation, is heading towards the designing, living in the regenerative culture with help of all the efforts that we are trying to become sustainable. So we start from the conventional going green, which we started, becoming sustainable, which is our immediate target. From there we move to restorative state, and then we become the regenerative. I think that is where we will have a really thriving biosphere and a really healthy, safe, secure, mankind on the planet Earth. And then in the context of cities, resilience is also equally important. And when we talk about resilience, again we talk about community connectedness, risk and vulnerabilities, planning and procedure, availability of resources to provide a very, you can say, satisfactory and interplay and common aspects within the resilience and sustainability of the planet Earth. Then there's even also a relation of growth, confusion and sustainability. Infrastructure that we have. On the top, we have city operations, city management and city governance. So these are like city leading capabilities, then city business centric capabilities, then all these are design by design the security, safety, privacy, resilience, interoperability. So I think this one big picture view of the city capabilities gives us how complex, how intermingled and how interdependent a city is. That's where transforming a city as a holistic, sustainable design is very good. Then, when we talk about city, we cannot just talk about human beings. And we need to take some learning from the Maxwell fundamental human model. We talked about all the basic needs of human beings. Then we also talk about, consider the Maslow model, where we start with the physiological needs to safety, love, and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. And if we try to basically look at this by mapping with a living city, maybe we have something like this, and the order of needs implies how a living city can improve or adapt to changing conditions. Then, what I was talking about, how do we map our SDGs with our city view with different aspects. So we had this step process: SDG analysis, problem analysis, SDO viewpoint, semantic analysis, keyword analysis, architecture view, and report out. And this is what the methodology we have developed. Picking up any SDG, looking at their target, mapping with the different KPIs of the city, and then mapping with the smart city reference architecture elements, and then different vertical reference architecture elements, and then further mapping and identifying the relevant standards. This approach, we can have a holistically SDG enabled cities which will meet all the human needs today, tomorrow, and day after. And actually, this is just another depiction of SDGs interplay with the cities. And now, coming to again to the smart cities capability, what exactly it is all about? Smart cities are here to address three core issues: ease of living, economic ability, and sustainability. And for them, the citizens are at the core. We need to provide them more from the less, and cooperative and competitive federalism is needed, integration, innovation, and sustainability is needed for economic ability, and for sustainability, technology is the means and not the goal, and inclusiveness. And for this, most of the smart city mission projects are focusing on all these quality of life, economic ability, and sustainability through different projects, heading toward services, finance, planning, technology, governance, and they all lead to collection of a lot of data. But is any city a green city? No. Actually, city transform from the brownfield cities, and that's where we need to have some phasing like phase 1, 2, and gradually brownfield smart city needs to evolve into a holistically smart and sustainable city. We know the concern, but what is important to understand is the interdependency of this service and solution in a city. You see, everything depends on each other. All these different services are dependent on each other. That's where we need a holistic view and systems view of the city's problems and issues, and keep in mind the interdependence interplay of the cities. And then the role of citizens, data and technology is very, very important in the cities. And then before we try to plan the transformation strategy, we also need to understand the city KPIs. Every city needs KPIs, and for example, efficiency in urban operation, means to improve quality of life and make to cultivate, environment is sustainability. To support the monitoring of relevant projects and initiatives, KPIs can be a universal instrument to evaluate the progress of smart city standards. KPIs in general measure the effectiveness of a project towards achievement of its specific key objectives. And to generate, these are the steps that we need, data collection, data normalization, data aggregation, data assessment, and evaluation. So, and if you look at the city as a system of systems, how do we use these KPIs to develop the smart city design of smart cities? We need to review all the KPI frameworks. There are ample KPI frameworks done by ITU, ICISO, and a lot of other global SBOs and ecosystems. So we look at them and develop a comprehensive understanding and develop an overarching superset of KPI framework based on the smart city that we envision. We enumerate them, the insights that need to be extracted to evaluate the city performance against the KPI, develop the architecture of the unified dashboard to capture and represent all the KPIs, develop specifications of each module representing all the KPIs and respective insights needed as a outcome. Then we enumerate the data sets needed for each module, and based on this data, we map the data set required to unified database of the what we have you can say intelligent communication center or whatever control room in the city, smart city centers we have in command control centers, etc., whatever we call them. And then we allocate the gap analysis, identify, capture, and document missing data set and contact information to develop comprehensive insights to meet the respective KPI. Identify, document the constraints of city under evaluation, and develop a strategy to fill the gap or augment the infrastructure. That's how we use the KPI approach to develop a new infrastructure and transform the old infrastructure to ensure that all the KPIs that we aspire to meet are met by our new infrastructure that we are deploying. And one of the most challenging intelligence that we have also seen for the SDO is the harmonization standard in smart home, smart buildings, smart grids, and smart cities. Because they all, and when we talk about IoT, it is all about heterogeneous and aware devices interacting to simplify people's life in some way or another. The IoT value chain is perhaps the most diverse and complicated value chain of any industry or conversion that exists in the world. In fact, the gold rush to IoT is so pervasive that if you combine much of the value chain of the most industry trade associations, standard bodies, the ecosystem partners of the trade associations and standard bodies, and then add in different technology providers, feeding those industries, you get close to understanding the scope of the task. Expecting a harmonization and standardization in this ecosystem complex is next to impossible. And all the same, all the applications you see in the city, all the utilities and the citizen services, they live in silos. Common understanding among all the stakeholders within the city who have to work together is absolutely missing. And that is where we need standards. And why do we need digitization and why do we need standards? Because city has diverse stakeholders, geographical diversity is there, several services and business processes are there, diverse sensors, diverse data and format, and diverse technology. So we need to make them interwork together in one one seamless, homogeneous big system or system of systems. For that, we need standardization for interoperability and working in a cohesion with each other. And then genesis of any smart city initiative today, if you really ask me, could be summed up into these aspects: standardization, security, platform agnostic, backward compatibility and economies of scale, capacity building, integrated approach, standardization of common processes, standardization of terminology and semantics, standardization of KPIs, standardization of technology components, including identification, development of open standards for IoT equipment, for interoperability and data reuse. And further, I think there's a lot of explanation about why do we need standards. I will not go into that now. You can read it through later on. But what is the problem? The conundrum is that standards and even SDOs are not at the forefront of solution designers, developers, providers, and powers of business mind. There are misconceptions on what standards are for, and the case for use of standards has not been made till now properly. Most researchers, design engineers, and even startups argue that standards block innovation. In fact, standardization brings innovation and